Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us virtually today. Hope you're all enjoying the conference content with a cup of tea at home. I'm Farhana Hemani and the Senior Engagement Manager at Manchester Pride. We're here today to talk about Manchester Pride's All Equals Charter, which we've been working hard on over the past year. I'm so excited to finally share it with you all. The All Equals Charter is designed to help businesses and organisations recognise and challenge all forms of discrimination. The Charter was launched at an inaugural conference last year, and we wanted to provide an opportunity today to update you on what we've been working on, tell you a bit more about the Charter and provide some practical tips on equality, diversity and inclusion. It's been an exciting year as we've worked behind the scenes to develop the Charter. We made the decision to initially beta test it with 10 organisations from a variety of sectors to ensure it was a robust, comprehensive and accessible process. And I've got Christos Tsaprounis, Head of People and Culture at Autotrader, here with me today. Christos, thank you so much for joining us. You're going to give us a bit of insight into your involvement with the All Equals Charter. So before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Autotrader?
Hello everybody, I hope you're all keeping safe and well at home. My role at Autotrader is focusing on three main things. First of all, our people, our internal people and our culture at Autotrader, then diversity and inclusion, and also all our links with the communities, especially the local communities across Greater Manchester and London, where our offices are based.
Thanks, Christoph. Thank you for introducing yourself. So to start off with, Autotrader and yourself personally have been involved with the development of our All Equals Charter right from the beginning, over 2 years ago now when we started consultations. Why was it important for Autotrader to be involved and take part in the beta testing?
So when we were first approached with the idea, I thought it was a very exciting idea, very aligned with our values about being community-minded. And I think what was very evident from the beginning is that in typical Manchester fashion, I guess, it was something that would bring a lot of business together in order to collaborate as opposed to compete, which tends to happen with similar initiatives like that. So I think that difference was really important for us. And when we get together with different organizations, community groups and charities during the consultation period, there were loads of ideas about how to make this quite unique, but very purposeful and useful for the business and organizations that are going to be taking part. So it was, I guess, a natural extension of our partnership with Manchester Pride for the past 4 years. So we've already enjoyed working with the team as well. So it was really important for us to be able to support that initiative across Greater Manchester.
Great. So how did you find the process and what was the most beneficial part of that for you?
So I think the process was really well managed. You know, to put this into context with people, this was the beta testing. So this was the first time. So as part of being part of that process, I guess you had the dual role of completing the process, but also providing advice in order for when this is launched to be better for everyone. But I think it was, you know, it was 90% there. I think the questions and the self-assessment part was really well explained. There were some questions that I think we've worked on. So when we launch it much wider, I think they're going to be different. I think the thing that was more important for us, though, and the thing that we enjoyed the most, was the face-to-face meeting in order to discuss the evidence that we put forward. And the way that actually that was facilitated by your guest expert, facilitator, was brilliant. So they were very challenging, but they were very open to listening the additional evidence that we have and exploring it with us. And at no point did it feel tick boxy. And I think this is very important for any charters, for any accreditation, any indices like that, that it doesn't become tick boxy. It's actually very beneficial. and you spend the time when you are assessing its organization in order to understand the context that the organization is actually operating in, the working practices, because this will vary from one business, especially sometimes from a commercial business to a charity to a small organization to a bigger organization. So I think that was done really well in a very collaborative way, yet challenging.
Yes, that was why we kind of did the beta testing, just to give a bit of context around that. Because this charter is going to be supporting businesses, which is corporate businesses, commercial businesses, but also looking at the charity sector, public service. We wanted to beta test with as many different organisations as we possibly could. And so within the 10 organisations we beta tested with, we had yourselves as a commercial business, we had GMCA Fire and Rescue, we had a council, which was Tameside Council, and we had a university as well, which was MMU. So we tried to get a really breadth of understanding. So it's great to hear that it was valuable and that you kind of took a lot from that. And one of the biggest parts of developing this charter has been about making sure it's about implementation and not this tick box exercise. So that's really great to hear from your perspective, Christos. Your Autotrader have been leaders in kind of looking at EDI within the business and within the workplace. What would you say is, in terms of leadership buy-in, why is that so significant within looking at developing EDI strategies, and what's your experience has been with that?
So we're very fortunate at Autotrader because all our executive team and our board are really bought into all the work that we're doing around EDI. And I think that has happened quite organically with us. A lot of the journey that we've been on for the past 6 years has not necessarily been the stereotypical top-down approach or bottom-up approach. It has actually come from many different places in the organization and across the organization. And I think that has been successful. Saying that, one thing that we did and concentrated on for the first year of launching our EDI strategy was to create that common understanding about what do we mean by EDI and why is it important for our business. And we did that with our executive team, we did that with our board, and we did that with everyone across the business by spending a day with everyone, obviously in different groups because we're a business of 900 people, in order to create that common understanding and that baseline. And since then, and for the rest of the time in the past 4 years, everything has been growing and growing and growing. And we have employee networks now that are leading on everything that we do, and a D&I working group that is at the forefront of everything. And when it comes to the senior leadership and our board, they all have parts to play as executive sponsors for our different working groups and employee networks. And the part that they play is not your stereotypical way where they just show up for an event and do the opening for that event, but they do the real work. They are really engaged. They learn from our employee networks and they do the hard work with them. They go to the employee network meetings. They look at the priorities that they have. They help them set their priorities for the year to come. And they offer their support and coaching for them to be able to actually be motivated, but have the tools and the time in order to be able to deliver on all these different priorities that they have. So it's a very collaborative approach, and it's very important to have that from across the business, but really important for all senior leaders in businesses to be able to adopt that approach. Again, it's only that way that it will be very authentic and very genuine. And again, it's not going to feel like they are doing something just because they feel it's the right thing to do, but they really believe in it.
Yeah, so you've touched upon kind of that it's not just kind of top down, but it's also bottom up as well, and it comes from all different angles of the business. So how significant is it to ensure that EDI, and particularly LGBTQ plus diversity and inclusion, is a part of the wider comprehensive strategy for your organisation?
I think what we're seeing now is that EDI is something that the majority of our people really care about, and that's why we've followed this approach where we've grown it organically. So the ideas of expanding on our employee networks came from individuals, usually a couple of individuals that either came from that part of the community or had a particular interest because they're a friend or a family member, and they came up with ideas to create new networks. And I think by doing that, we now have a comprehensive strategy that covers a lot of different aspects of diversity. And then why this is important is because our people, first of all, can have that additional purpose to everything else that they're doing at work every day. But what we see now is actually we can inform and we can support the business strategy. And we are working in cross-collaborative initiatives when it comes to the products and services that we offer to our customers. Because the key objective of everything that we do is to make sure that we're able to look after each other as employees, but also be very have a positive contribution to our customers and the communities around us. And you can't really do that unless you acknowledge that the EDI is important, is a big part of who we are as people. All those different characteristics make us who we are. So by acknowledging that and putting some structure and effort behind it and building those strategies, that can really be very effective when it comes to your business strategy.
Yeah, and I love your approach with that, because it's been, as you mentioned, it's been that organic kind of looking at the people within the organization and focusing on what their needs are as well. So it's not just this kind of let's figure out a strategy in isolation, but actually let's involve the people that this matters to, and how can we get their voices heard. And I think that's really apparent within what you guys have done at Autotrader, and you've put the people at the forefront of your strategy at every level. And I think that's a really exciting approach, and it's something that really came across when we came in to do kind of our health checks with you. There's such visibility within Autotrader, which is, I think, so valuable for people to be able to go into a workplace and see themselves represented. It's quite a significant thing to be able to achieve.
It's true, yes. And I think the other particularly important aspect of this is collaborating with different local community groups and charities, both local and national charities. And I think we've really made sure that we build a lot of connections and those relationships with lots of charities like the National Autistic Society, Stonewall, and obviously Manchester Pride, and loads of different charities that really specialize in all these different aspects of diversity. And it's important to always tap into their expertise. It's very difficult for an EDI team to be experts in all these different aspects of diversity. It's just such a complex area. So make sure, I think that's, as I guess, if I can offer some advice, make sure that you build those relationships with those charities, and through building those relationships, you benefit, and then you can support the work that they do.
Thank you, Christos. So just going to kind of during the development of the All Equals Charter, like during the consultation phase, we found that over 40% of LGBTQ plus people had experienced discrimination due to characteristics in addition to their LGBTQ plus status. So we made sure that the Charter had a lot of emphasis on intersectionality, and working with you guys, we've developed that even further during the beta testing phase. What are the other types of discrimination Autotrader is focused on, and what steps have you taken to embed intersectionality in your EDI strategy?
So yeah, it's very unfortunate, and it's very worrying when you look at some of the statistics. And you know, when we talk openly with our people, and sometimes what they experience, and you know, we always try to remember that we try, and to an extent, I think we are successful in providing that working environment that hopefully people experience a very positive working environment. But we should never forget that what happens to people outside the office, and obviously what people have experienced in the past as well. I think it's very important to bear that in mind. It's very important for us, the approach that we take is to listen to our people. We have a lot of data through our people analytics and various surveys that we do, and we always analyze those data based on all the different aspects of diversity, and we try to correlate to see how the real experience of people is through that data. But we don't only base our future strategy based on that, but then we validate those data, utilizing our people, utilizing our employee networks to actually validate that quantitative data, further explore and give them ownership about what we are going to do about it. And one final thing about intersectionality is that as we build our networks and all the different networks, not only focused on EDI, but also our well-being network, our mental health first aiders, and other networks in the business that we have, we try to get them all to collaborate. The strategy in the beginning, in the early years, was more about keeping each other informed and making sure that the activities that they were doing were not clashing with each other. But we're moving towards collaborating and really making sure that the networks work together in order to understand what each other's challenges, what each other's commitments and priorities are, and whether our synergies that actually are able to be achieved. So we're moving to respecting the fact that intersectionality is something that exists, and it's something that we need to fight against because it's discrimination on different grounds, and move into collaboration and creating synergies of how we actually achieve that across our networks.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on a little bit more around kind of your strategy around supporting people with disabilities and people of colour particularly, because I know even though that's not exclusively LGBTQ+, there are areas that I know a lot of businesses are looking at and wanted to understand better. And I know that as well, working with kind of National Autistic Society, that neurodiversity is a large kind of part of moving forwards for Autotrader. Could you talk to us a little bit about those strategies and how you kind of started work on developing them and why they're so important?
Sure, and again, it's a really good example of how something that started really in an organic way. So 3 years ago, we had a colleague that is autistic and wanted some further support for themselves, their team, to actually understand more about autism. And that's how the partnership with the National Autistic Society started, which resulted in us becoming the first company in the world to become autism friendly after 12 months of
great example, really.
It is, and credit to all the people, all our autistic colleagues, and all the people in the disability and neurodiversity network that worked really hard in order for us to achieve that. And then as soon as we did that, then there's more and more ideas and more people that were inspired by that story, and then they want to do more and more. Then we joined the Disability Confidence Scheme and became disability leaders. We're doing a lot of work on less visible disabilities as well. And the network is just, I'm just so proud of them, because they work so well together and they bring all these different experiences. They're really, I think that the thing that they get really well is that they are inspired and the passion comes from their personal experience. But as soon as they join the network, they're also looking at how can we make our business better for disabled and neurodiverse people. And I think that's a very, it's a great characteristic for people that are involved in networks to have. Be inspired by your personal experience and then use that in order to create something that's better for everyone. and the ideas that they have and the progress that they're making is great.
That's really wonderful to hear. So kind of moving on then, what does the future of EDI look like in your organisation?
So, we're just at the beginning, I guess. So we have some really good examples of some successes, but in no way we don't have our challenges. We have a lot of challenges that we're still facing. I don't think for us EDI is something that is a project or an initiative that has an end date. I think it's something that we will always be working really hard, always learning from our mistakes, listening to our people, hopefully engaging more and more people, new people that are joining the business, learning from their experiences as well. So I think it's just expanding on what we're doing, and the key thing for us is to be able to collaborate across all our networks and keep on empowering them to make a difference.
Thank you. So to end then, what would your top tip be to businesses and organisations who are kind of starting this journey on EDI? What would you advise them to start with?
I think first of all, don't be afraid to start, because we all need to start from somewhere. So sometimes it's very difficult to think, well, if we start with that and we don't do that, how is that going to come across to people? Just start from somewhere. And I think that what will happen is more people will come with ideas, and then you'll be able to expand from that. And secondly, I think do try to create that common understanding about what EDI means for your business and what the benefits of EDI are, because I think that will be a good a groundwork for you to move forward. And then empower and engage with your people. EDI is not something, it's not the work of a single person, it's not a work of the people team, it's actually the work of everyone in the business. And the more people you involve, the more comprehensive your strategy will be. And I think it's all about that diversity of thinking. So the better ideas you will have when you get more people involved.
That's great. Thank you so much, Christos. I would hope that you would recommend the All Equals Charter to the people listening today, but why would you recommend it? What about the Charter has been useful, and why would you suggest people to join?
I think it's a great opportunity for you to spend some time to really assess what you're actually doing when it comes to your LGBT plus strategy, and then have someone externally to actually be able to audit what you're doing, but audit it in a really meaningful way that can really help you get that external perspective from someone that's a real expert, but also someone that really cares about this, and then being part of this group of organizations that you can share ideas with, you can share your thoughts, your challenges. I think it's great for the Greater Manchester community to have something like that and collaborate on.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today, Christos. It's been wonderful hearing about the insights in EDI at Autotrader. Thanks everyone at home for joining us, and we hope you found the information useful. If you want to find out more about the All Equals Charter, you can visit our website at allequalscharter.com, and we'll be online now after to answer any questions that you might have. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll see you soon. Take care.